Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Hazlitt, and my colleague is Kim Campanella. We're pleased to be here today to help you folks out in these trying times, these very difficult times, these very novel times, and trying to help you and your sons or daughters in supporting your kids' educational learning while at home, while you're taking on the extra role of being a teacher to your son or daughter. So we're pleased to be here to offer you some suggestions and see if you can try them on for size and see if they help you out in these trying times. Before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. I'm a registered social worker at Linwood Charlton Centre here in Hamilton, Ontario. I've been with this organization since 1978. I haven't been a registered social worker that long. I became a social worker in the early 90s, and prior to that, I was a child and youth worker in the residential program at Linwood Charlton Centre. And then since the early 90s, I've been a social worker working with the families and kids in our day treatment specialized school program on site. Kim?
And I'm Kim Campanella, and I'm also from Linwood Charlton Center. I've been there for the last 13 and a bit years. I have experience in the intensive out-of-home program, and I currently work with Doug as well in our day treatment school-based program as well. Okay, so we want to get started and just talk about, like Doug had mentioned, ways that you can hopefully feel a bit supported during this really trying pandemic right now. We know a lot's going on. And as you know, school boards across the province have shut down for weeks and possibly months, and our kids have been obligated to stay home. And many of you have had to become teachers overnight. We can appreciate that this is a really challenging balance that's likely to create a lot of stress and family conflict. And with the suspension of things like daycare, schools, even just regular activities, sports, swimming lessons, any other extracurriculars, clubs, and those types of things, not having these routines can be really destabilizing, but there are ways that you can combat this by just putting in some simple routines, which we are going to spend some time talking about, just to hopefully create a bit of stability, predictability, and consistency for your kids and the family unit as a whole. This doesn't have to be regimented or perfect. The strategies that we're going to suggest, there are some ideas which we will talk about, but even simple things like just waking up at a consistent time every day, having a good breakfast, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, and even in the evening, still keeping up with those regular routines of having a shower, bath, PJs, brushing your hair, settling into bed. Those simple things can be really important in just helping maintain some normalcy throughout what's going on right now.
And very comforting too, Kim? Very comforting to the kids and to the adults. If they can preserve some sameness throughout their day in the midst of this unusual time, that's comforting. All those little details are comforting, we hope.
Absolutely. And so in addition to some of those just standard routines, the idea of a plan or a schedule throughout the day can help reduce some conflict if you have school-age children that are required to do some schoolwork due to the closures. So we're going to talk about what that can look like and how you can be supported in that. And really what this presentation, what we want it to be is hopefully some ideas that by the end or throughout, you'll take some note down of things that, speak to you or things that you feel like, that's something I might want to explore further or look into more or try. This isn't sort of the be-all, end-all. We're not promising that these exact strategies are going to solve everything. We really want to encourage you guys to adapt and personalize some of these strategies based on the needs of your child and your household.
Just try these ideas on for size and customize it to your individual life.
Yeah. So you might feel like, and your child might feel like, that initially when all this started, that it was similar to, winter break or summer holidays or long weekends, but you might slowly be realizing that it's not quite the same just because this break has been unplanned and we don't really know when the closures are going to end. So it is a bit different than what sort of we're typically used to when we do have time off away from school. Not to mention the added pressure of having to self-isolate and stay home. That creates a lot of additional stress as well, because everyone's getting a little bit cabin crazy. I know, cabin fever crazy. I know I'm a little on edge at times with just having to stay in all the time. So Obviously, these things are a lot different, and that's why we want to talk about how you might want to switch things up a little bit differently at home and not view this as perhaps an extended summer break or anything like that. So really, first things first is really important, as we've talked about, to have some structure. Even setting a schedule or routines for the weekday and weekends is really important. And we will talk a bit more about this as we move on in the presentation. In general, one of the most important things you can do for your child to help them feel safe and secure is to have as much routine as possible. Children and adults really feel the most secure when their lives are predictable and consistent. And because young children don't always understand the concept of time, so as adults we know the passage of hours and minutes, kids don't really have that skill developed yet. And so instead they rely on events to understand the passage of time. So a 30-minute TV show, and then they know that 30 minutes has passed. Or after breakfast, then I need to brush my teeth. They don't really understand the concept of time. So that's why it's important and sometimes good to have a routine or schedule that has sort of blocked events to help them move through their day. And also some kids don't always understand how to predict the future, and that cause and effect relationships. So having routine and structure can help build some of those skills. Exercise is obviously really important, but we recognize that's difficult to do when we're having to stay inside. But just keeping active every day, everyone's going to feel calmer and sleep better. And this can be things, if you have backyard space or outside space, even as simple as playing tag and hide and seek or Simon Says, or going for short walks while maintaining social distance can really be enough to kind of get active and switch up the environment of being cooped up in the house.
And just from a bit of a more scientific perspective, exercise promotes and releases those endorphins in the body, which really are those feel-good chemicals in the body. So they really do have some benefits, not only keeping physically fit and keeping those extra pounds off, but also releasing those feel-good chemicals in the body. So,
absolutely. And then one of the last things you want to be mindful is social connections. Trying to maintain those social connections. As we know, humans are very social creatures, so connecting with others is crucial. And kids who are connected to other kids and families are generally more happy, less anxious, and have more fun. We recognize this can be challenging to do when you're having to isolate as well, but there are ways that you can still foster some connection using technology. This could be phone calls or texting, even using FaceTime if you have Apple device, or Skype, House Party, or even Zoom offers some free signups as well for some 40-minute video chats.
And Kim, I'm looking out my window right now, and there's two families, one across the road from each other, and every time of the day at this time, they get out on their front lawn, so there's a roadway and two sidewalks in between the families, and they do calisthenics, and they do mirror image calisthenics between each family across the road from each other. There's two, like a 3 and a 7-year-old and a 4 and a 6-year-old across the street, so it gives them that opportunity to have that social connection even at a distance, rather than even being on a tablet. So that's a nice, easy way of getting that connection as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anytime you can get creative while still maintaining that social distancing is definitely encouraged. And just switching it up in any way you can. So we talked about the idea of structuring the day. So after you wake up and have breakfast, get through your morning routines, we recognize that a lot of school boards are still encouraging kids to do some academic work or some learning in some capacity. And so we want to talk a little bit about scheduling or structuring a bit of a school schedule during the day. Again, I want to remind you that it's not sort of hard and fast rules. These things that we're going to suggest, it doesn't have to look the exact same for every family, because we recognize that every family is unique and different and has their own things that they need to consider and challenges that they're facing. There could be several kids in the home. There could be different levels of engagement as well. Some parents are having to work from home. Some parents are single parent homes. So there's a lot of things that we really want to recognize that are needed to take into consideration. So be mindful of that and don't feel like you are expected to, adhere to some of these suggestions. So as we know, a free loose for all schedule is great for snow days and PA days and short breaks, but it can lead to boredom if it's left too unstructured for a longer period of time. So what the school board is suggesting is that kids start doing some schoolwork just to keep up with that educational learning routine and try and keep that pace going. Depending on your child's age, you might want to consider having a conversation with them about incorporating some learning in their day and perhaps do some brainstorming as to what that school schedule can look like. You're going to find if you do this and you're able to, depending on your child's age, you'll get better engagement out of them. It's going to reduce conflict. They're going to value and appreciate their learning a lot more, and it will help with that communication piece and the problem-solving piece.
And that they're going to feel consulted, which is going to promote that collaborative venture that we're all trying to support here.
Absolutely. So what the school board's encouraging is, if you just read on the slide here, if your child's in kindergarten to grade 3, that they really only do 1 hour of learning a day, focusing on literacy and math. And if your child's in grades 4 to 6, they again are doing 1 hour of learning a day, focusing on literacy, math, science, and social studies. If your child's in grades 7 and 8, 2 hours of learning a day, focusing on literacy, core math, science, and social studies, so history and geography. And if your child's in high school between grades 9 and 12, that they're working on their courses, 3 hours of work a week per course, focusing on their credits and graduation.
And we certainly don't want you families now. We don't want you families now to start panicking now that you see this laid out like this. We're going to talk about ways of chunking this work time up, etc. So our purpose today is not to add to your feelings of guilt or worry or anything like that. So these are suggestions, but these are the guidelines that we're trying to frame our presentation around.
Absolutely. So here's an example of what a school schedule could look like. Again, we encourage adaptation and personalization and revamping based on the needs of your family, your child, and your household. But this is just a sort of standard idea of perhaps a framework that some families might want to try. So really, we've blocked it out into about hour time chunks. After morning routines, you would want to start by just setting out the expectations for the day. And that's where you would engage your child in that conversation. Maybe they have some interest in what they want to do. They want to research something or learn more about something. So you're really working with your child and setting what the expectations are for the day and building that schedule up a little bit. And then you would move into an academic block. Depending on your child's needs, you might chunk that into 20 to 30-minute blocks. Or if your child's older and able to sort of sit for longer periods of time or focus a little bit easier, they could do a longer period of 40 minutes, 45 minutes, etc. You want to make sure that you're building in breaks and snacks and some physical activity and movement breaks, which we will talk a little bit about in the future and later in this presentation. And then after a break, again, an academic block. This can be creative as well. It doesn't have to be pencil to paper work task, which we will talk about some suggestions. Lunch, obviously we want to keep that routine of having lunch midday so that everyone stays energized and gets that natural break as well. And then after lunch, again, doing a physical activity, movement break, or even a quiet activity would be important. On this schedule, we've built in some time for daily chores, so cleaning the room, vacuuming, dusting, or putting away dishes. And this will really help with fostering the idea of everyone working together in the home and building that responsibility and that collaboration. And it will really give everyone an opportunity for everyone to do chores at the same time, not just the child that you're doing a schedule for.
And there's educational aspects to doing chores as well, as we all know. So
absolutely. And then after that would be a good opportunity for some inquiry or creative time. This is where you could look into some science activities or art or drama or dance or even research topics. We'll talk a little bit about this in the presentation later as well. And then finishing off the day with, again, a break and then a light snack just to tide them over until dinner time. So in order to really do some schoolwork, it's important to have a bit of a learning space set up at home. And this can be challenging if you have multiple kids that you need to sort of set up a space for, or if you're living in a smaller home environment, it might be tricky. So we wanted to give you some strategies of things just to be mindful of if you are interested in setting up a learning space. The first point is to really make the space conducive for learning. This can mean minimizing visual clutter by putting unnecessary things away and keeping things organized. I know for me, when it was time to start working from home, I had to sort of set up a space in my kitchen and move things around just so that things were easily accessible and organized, and that I always had that consistent space that I could come to every day. And also you want to be mindful of auditory distractions as well. So keeping the TV off or noise down, silencing cell phones, turning off the radio. And this can even mean if you have younger children in the home, toddler age, that you have them occupied with some quiet activities as well, just to keep some of those noise distractions down.
Kim, as this pandemic has gone on, some of my families have said to me the learning spaces that they provided for the kids initially, they've revised them. They've kind of moved them to just a slightly separate location, just to give them some variety. So they still maintain the need for all those factors that you've talked about, but there's a variety given. So that's an option too, possibly for some families.
Absolutely. I know for me, I'm currently sitting at a wood table on a wood chair, but I'm waiting for the nicer weather to warm up so I can maybe move my workspace outside. So I'll definitely be doing that. But absolutely, it's good to switch it up as well. A second consideration is just to make sure that materials and supplies are readily available and nearby. This is going to help your child stay focused because they're not going to need to be getting up and down looking for materials and sort of turning the house upside down looking for a pair of scissors or some Scotch tape. And really, you don't need to go overboard with some of these supplies, even just as simple as pencil, erasers, coloring materials. And then depending on the activity, you might want to include scissors, ruler, tape. Pencil sharpener is also important as well. I find that those pencils get broken quite often. A third thing you'll want to consider is a visual schedule. So we had talked about the importance earlier about the routine, but sometimes having that visual is also really helpful for kids. And you'll see on the slide here, we've included a link, goboardmaker.com. It provides some free downloads and a 90-day trial with sign up, where it will give you some scheduled templates and some pictorials, as well as other resources that you can use and just print if you have a printer, and then develop a schedule from that. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to show you the registration process, just so that hopefully everyone can feel comfortable navigating this resource, because I know right now there's a lot of resources floating around and some are easier than others. I found this one extremely helpful, so we just wanted to take a few minutes just to show you what it all entails and hopefully pique your interest a little bit.
And then the beauty of doing it, Kim, is that it's there now. It's going to be recorded, and you guys can refer to it step by step as Kim walks you through it. So for those that are less technically adept, like myself.
So when you click on, okay, so when you click on that link, you're going to get to this web page, and I'm going to use my pointer just to show you. So on this web page, there'll actually be about 12 different headings of different resources that you can access. I actually sort of screenshotted and cut these two resources together because I found them the most helpful. So coronavirus activities and resources and Boardmaker online. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to walk you through both of them, and we're just going to start with the coronavirus activities and resources. So when you click on this download now link here, oh look at, I also had an arrow as well. It'll take you to this login page, and what you'll want to do is just click the create account button over here, and then that will take you to this create account page. As you'll see, it's just standard information. You don't have to input any credit card information, just an email address and a password, and then you would click create account. From there, you'll get a confirmation email to the email that you registered. You'll go to that email and then just click the verified email button, and then that will take you back to the original login screen here. You fill in your email and password, and then from there, you'll end up on this portal homepage. So these are all the resources available to you that are free and easily downloadable and accessible. Again, you'll see that there are 6 different folders that you can access. I spent time exploring all of them. I found the first one and the last one the most helpful. However, I did find this very user-friendly to use. Very simple, click forward, click backwards, download, yes or no. So I really encourage you guys to explore the other folders, because you might find some things that are helpful for your family and your child. So looking at this first folder here, coronavirus teaching and communication resources, you'll see that their resources are available in 28 different languages, which is pretty awesome. I clicked the English US link, and from there, that took me to a download prompt right here. You can click either open if you just want to open the downloadable content the one time, or you can click save and it will save to your actual device. Once that's downloaded, you'll get these folders here, and this is what we're just going to highlight quickly for you. So the home learning schedule up here, those are the resources that will give you templates for daily schedules, weekly schedules, or if you want like a first, now, then schedule, they have those as well. And on top of the schedule, they have 3 pages of pictorials that are already pre-done. You just have to print them and cut them out, and you'll see it includes chores, hygiene tasks, meals, quiet activity ideas, movement break ideas, learning activities. So if you are looking to build up a schedule with your child, you could print these off, and then your child and you could build that schedule together of, okay, this is what we're going to do first. You're going to go to a learning website, and then after that, we can take a break and have a snack. And then after that, we're going to do some arts and crafts. So you could actually build that schedule with your child. And again, those are available to download. Also in that folder, you'll see some visual printouts that you can print, how to stay healthy with just some guidelines for your kids and helping them understand what they can do to stay healthy, and perhaps some hand washing tips that you might want to post in the bathroom or just review with your kids, and helping understand the importance of hand washing and the steps to do that. So again, those were all in that first folder, easily accessible. I'm also going to show you down here the board maker activities to go. Really, really cool. So again, I just clicked on the English link. That brought me to a download prompt. You can either click open or save, and then once it's downloaded, you get this folder here. And what this folder includes are different themes of activities and resources that you can do with your child as a different way of learning. So for example, I was exploring the space and planets folder, and in just that folder, they had things like activity worksheets, vocabulary words, matching activities, reading material, craft ideas, printable games, quizzes, coloring activities, even printable pictures and decorations. And each folder has things like that. So earlier when we were talking about some of that creative learning, it doesn't have to be the work that's just assigned by the school and the teacher. This would be a good folder to refer to for some alternative learning. Life skills, food choices, inventions for some science, human body for healthy living. So lots of great resources, free, easy to download and navigate, available at your fingertips. So I know this might feel like a lot of information, but like Doug said, thankfully we're recorded. So if you wanted to, rewind back and pause and actually go through hand over hand as you try it yourself, feel free to. We really encourage you guys to look at these resources because there really was a lot available. So we started.
That's fantastic. And Kim, the other thing I was thinking of is for those families that have access to a computer and can see this but don't have a printer, because we have had a couple of families of late that don't have a printer, maybe they can encourage their sons or daughters to look at the drawings on the screen and then draw them themselves and create part of their schedule through some artwork. So there's lots of ways to develop something for themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have started that exploration by going to this link here, which you'll remember took us to this web page. We just finished exploring this heading here, the activities and resources. I also just want to take a few seconds to show you the Boardmaker Online portal as well. So again, you would just click the sign up button, and then from there it would take you to two registration pages, very easy to fill out, just standard information, no credit card information is needed. Once you register, again, you'll get an email sent to your email account, and you can click on the login link in that email, or on the web page after you register, there's a Get Started button that you can click on as well. And then once you click on either of those links, you'll be brought to the Boardmaker Online website. And then from here, you can click the download the Boardmaker Studio link right here. Again, you'll get that prompt to run the download. You just click install, and then once it's finished installing, an icon will be saved to your desktop. And then once you click the icon, you'll be opened up to the Boardmaker Studio. And this is where you can really get creative by making different pictorials or different activity worksheets with your for your child. This I found to be more comprehensive. I did spend some time exploring, and I felt like I only scratched the surface of it, because there's just so much available and so much you can do in the studio. So to compare the two resources, I found that first heading very easy because it's all done and straightforward, and you just decide what you want and print, whereas this one gives you the opportunity to create and make things. On the Boardmaker Online website, there are some tutorials that can help you understand all the features of the studio. So if you are interested in using the studio, I really encourage you to take some time, be patient, know that you're not going to sort of understand it all and digest it all in one sitting. You might go back to it a couple times, play around with it and whatnot. So let's go back to where we left off, which was right here talking about how to set up a learning space. And if you'll remember, we talked about making the space conducive for learning. We talked about the importance of having supplies and materials. And then we just finished talking about the idea of having a visual schedule just to help kids navigate their day, move through their day, and understand that what's happening now, what's happening later, and then what's happening after that. And that can be, again, meal times, chores, playtime, work time, etc. You'll also want to keep instructions clear and concise and give one instruction at a time.
We know, Kim, don't we, that most kids appreciate that, and most parents have discovered that when they give clear and concise one instruction at a time expectations, the likelihood of the kids successfully following through and therefore feeling good about themselves is higher. So there's a plus for that very important bullet point for sure.
Absolutely. And like what Doug was saying, those clear and concise instructions will make sure that it gives them time to process what you're asking of them as well. Using prompts such as first, next, then, and finished when you're working through a task, it can be really helpful as well. Again, it helps them understand that there's a sequence of events and that there is an end to the task that you're asking of them. Checking in regularly and offering help as needed is very important. So whether you stay nearby or you're working beside them, or they just know that you're available to help as needed, it would be really important. And then giving encouragement and verbal praise. We know everyone thrives on praise. We like when we get praise from our partners and our bosses and our coworkers. And even when our kids say nice things and show appreciation, our kids likewise appreciate verbal praise and thrive off of verbal praise. And this can be, saying things like, I like the way that you're doing your multiplication, or I noticed that you tried really hard on your reading. Awesome job on that. Or I like the way that you remembered to, and fill in the blank, great thinking. I'm really proud of you for making that choice to get started on your work, even though you didn't want to. Really
And
try
guess
to
what?
give that.
Guess what? Praise doesn't cost anything, and it's one of the most powerful tools we've got in our toolbox. So we encourage that in other sessions that we do with our families, Kim and I, and it's a great go-to, especially during this time of high stress. Everybody can appreciate some praise and some recognition of their efforts.
Yeah, and there's two different types of praise. There's labeled praise and unlabeled praise. Unlabeled praise is, good job, way to go, awesome. Whereas labeled praise is you're really getting specific and saying, I'm proud of you for making that choice. I know that was hard, or I really like the way that you're sitting down and focusing. So really being specific, because that's going to reinforce for them what the desired behavior is that you're looking for. Both are good, but you'll definitely want to switch them up, just to switch things up a little bit. So you remember when we showed the example of that school schedule and included some transition activity time at the beginning, and it also included some physical activity or movement breaks throughout the day. We're going to talk now about what that looks like, what transition activities look like, and what movement breaks suggestions could be. Transitions. Transitioning from one activity to another are times when children are most likely to experience challenges. It can be hard for our kids to move from one activity to another, especially if they're doing something that they don't want to stop doing. Video games, or playing with their Lego, or playing outside in the backyard. If they're having fun and you're telling them to turn it off, get off, or come inside, sometimes that can be hard for them to do. Take a few seconds now to think about some of the transitions that your child experiences throughout their day. Some examples could be transitioning from a preferred to undesired task. So like I said, maybe getting off their tech devices, whether it's TV, tablet, or video games. It could be cleaning up, so putting away their toys in their bedroom before bedtime. Or it could be transitioning from break to academic time. It's important to give notice to your child before it's time to make a change, using verbal prompts or a timer, and give them an honest amount of time to put things away. So it's important to choose your timing if you can, and have your child stop one thing and then start another after a natural break in their activities. So an example would be if they're working on a puzzle, perhaps wait for them to finish that puzzle before you get them to transition to the next activity. If you're sensitive to what they're doing, it can make transitions a lot easier for you and your child. And give them some warning about any change of activity coming up. For example, John, you have 5 more minutes to play, and then it's going to be time to clean up. Or Mary, once you finish that level in the game, you need to turn it off.
Or hey guys, do you smell those grilled cheese sandwiches in the kitchen? Lunch is going to be ready in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So giving them some notice and some warning and ahead of time, some prompts. So like I mentioned, either a verbal prompt or even using a timer can really be helpful. And then the last thing, transition activities can actually help children move from one task to another. And when they're executed smoothly, they can actually be fun and not time consuming, but time saving. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to include some transition activity suggestions. So if you are having your child try to transition, let's say from morning routines into academic time, you might want to start off with a little bit of a quick, fun transition activity. And we have a couple suggestions here. One is a game of I Spy around the room that you guys are in. Another could be back writing or drawing. So have your child sit in front of you and then you draw on their back, whether it's a letter or a simple picture, and they have to try and guess what you're drawing. You could play a sound game, so playing different sounds and having them guess what it is that it sounds like. It could be water running or a cat meowing or crickets chirping. You could have them do a body spelling activity, so using their body to actually spell out their name or different words. So if they were spelling out octopus, they would have to, hold up an O and then a C and then a T and actually use their body to spell out the word. You could count to 10 and think of a rhyming word. So run, 1, sun, 2, shoe, 3, tree. Other ideas are 2 actions at once. So giving them some challenges of things that they have to do at the same time. So I know a classic is tapping your head and rubbing your stomach. Or you could play a quick game of guess what I'm counting. So looking around the room and counting out the number of same objects. So for me, if I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they might count that I was counting my windows. Or this one I like, I'm going on a picnic and I'm bringing. So you think of items to bring that start with the first letter of your name. So for example, I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring kiwi.
I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring donuts.
Ooh. I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring kidney beans.
I'm going on a picnic and I'm going to bring Doritos. Very healthy things I'm thinking of. So.
And so you would play that game back and forth until someone can't think of a word or an item to bring on their picnic. And then the last one, another idea is a coin wiggle game. So having them lie on the floor and place a coin on their nose, and then having them try to wiggle the coin off without actually wiggling their head.
And if we want to be cognizant of the fact that maybe coins might not be the best, most sanitized thing to put on our kids' nose, we've done it in one of our classrooms where we place a cookie on their nose and they try and maneuver the cookie without using their hands down to their mouth. So it's a very interesting and entertaining transition exercise as well. So,
Sure, for sure. So that's something that you might want to think about if you're having to move from one activity to another. Try and make it fun. Doesn't have to be long or too involved. Some of these ideas are just using your body or words. You don't have to get supplies or have any cleanup or preparation beforehand, but it just helps get kids in a different frame of mind from shifting from what they were doing, distracting themselves with a fun little activity, and then shifting into what you're expecting of them next. In that schedule, we also talk about the importance of movement breaks and how it's important to alternate between learning tasks, playtime, and short physical activities. There's many benefits to regularly scheduled movement breaks throughout the day, and this can include improved impulse control and ability to self-regulate, better engagement, improved ability to focus, and increased information retention, and helping with their physical posture, movement skills, and coordination skills.
and again, we can't forget the endorphins that are going to circulate through their body by doing that as well. So.
Absolutely. And that's something that we do in our classrooms at Linwood Charlton Center is we really build in opportunities for those movement breaks, those stretches, just to switch it up a bit so that we're not too bogged down with doing the same activity for too long. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make some suggestions as to what that could look like. Again, being sensitive to everyone being cooped up in our houses. Sometimes we don't always have the opportunity to go out and go for a run or go play at the park, obviously, in this current pandemic. So we want to give some suggestions of things that you can do around the house, in the home, or in the backyard. One is yoga, so doing some different yoga exercises. Another is using an exercise ball, so one of those big inflatable exercise balls just to bounce, roll, and shift and lay on their stomach. Another great one is dancing. So there's great videos on YouTube using the Just Dance game. Or if you actually have a video game system and have that game, you could do some Just Dance games as well. Another resource is gonoodle.com. If you go on that website, there's lots of 3-minute, 4-minute videos where they do different dance activities on the screen and the kids can follow along. Various stretches and exercises. Or a game of keep it up, so have them keep up a balloon in the air using their hands, or keep it off the ground by using their feet hacky sack style. If you have 2 kids in the home, you could do a quick game of cooperative stand up, so where they both sit on the ground, backs to each other, arms linked together, and then they have to try and stand up to their feet without using their hands on the ground. It ends up being a very interesting sight as they kind of lean on each other to try and wiggle their way up and shimmy their way to standing up.
Kim, speaking of sites, I came across a YMCA site last night that offered families a virtual YMCA experience because they can't go to the physical YMCA anymore. and it's beautifully laid out with different physical activities, emotional activities, emotionally based activities, etc. So it's a good site to keep in mind as well.
Sure. Some other suggestions. The first two here are kind of alternative versions of Simon Says. So you could play a quick game of Birds Can Fly. So call out true animal actions. So for example, birds can fly, rabbits can hop, dogs can bark, and have them perform the action. But if when you call out a fib, cats can oink, and they do it, then the game ends. Or you can play a hopping challenge. So kangaroo says, hop on one foot, hop in one place, hop backwards. And when you don't say kangaroo or frog says and they do it, then the game ends. You could play a game of find it fast. So again, looking around the room and calling out an object or calling out a characteristic of the object that you're thinking of. So for example, I would say something green and then something fluffy and something big, and it's a dog toy over in my living room. Or you could have a quick game of plates, give them a paper plate and have them walk around the room, balancing the plate on their head. And if it drops, then they have to try and pick it up using only their toes. Again, movement breaks are really good to exercise those muscles and switch up the pace of the day a little bit. So some movement breaks can be more exerting than others, depending on the space that you have. Again, we really encourage creativity. And what you can do is even just going into Google or a search engine on the internet and just typing in movement break suggestions for kids, and you'll see other ones that pop up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some visuals that we have that we use in our classroom, along with a lot of others that we encourage the kids. When we do some movement breaks, we'll bring out a visual and we'll work through some different movement activities. So this one is to try some animal poses. So sitting and making yourself the shape of a turtle or a giraffe. Or we do some yoga poses. So having them do a tree or a warrior pose or the bulldog pose. Or I had mentioned laying or bouncing on an exercise ball. So here's some visuals of some different positions that they can do just to stretch out the body, use different muscles, do some exercises. Even stretches, we had mentioned doing some stretches, just get that blood flowing, releasing those endorphins like Doug had said, doing some different stretches. Again, we had mentioned how visuals can be really helpful to kids, so even just having visuals of these pictorials could be helpful. Even doing some workout exercises. So here we have walking on the spot, then turning around, touching your toes, stretching, tapping your legs. Or you could do a quick little fun game of 10 to 5 or 10 to 1 where they do 10 jumping jacks, 9 frog sits or frog jumps, 8 sit-ups, all the way down to 10.
And Kim, what we were also suggesting is that parents not only be an audience to these kids' movement break efforts, but also be participants with them, so that you're modeling some good movement break activity-oriented moments with your son or daughter. So it's important to get in there as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. In a few minutes talking about as well is what's called grounding exercises and regulation strategies. During this stressful and challenging time, you might be noticing some fluctuations in your child's moods and emotions. And in fact, it would actually be quite understandable if their ability to regulate their feelings has diminished over the last few weeks. We're definitely in really stressful and challenging times, lots of uncertainty, lots of predictability, lots of boredom, lots of cabin fever. So it definitely is understandable if you're noticing that their emotions are a lot higher or are sort of showing up more frequently or perhaps are more intense. It would be understandable. So that's why we want to take a few minutes to talk about some grounding exercises and some regulation strategies. Grounding is a practice that helps us pull away from negative and challenging emotions. We want you to take a few seconds now to think of the feelings your child might have difficulty expressing or experiencing. It's important to remember that every child's different and unique and experiences feelings differently. So some feelings that are difficult to experience or express might be things like frustration or disappointment, embarrassment, confusion, shame or remorse, or even boredom.
Mhm.
Regulation strategies can help your child distract them from what the difficult feeling that they're experiencing and refocus on what's happening in the present moment. And some of these strategies have different focuses depending on the needs of your child and depending on what works best for them. And there's lots of different strategies, and we're going to highlight a couple of them. But some of these focuses can be slowing their thinking or reframing their thinking. It might be muscle relaxation strategies or strategies to help them use their words to express themselves, distraction exercises, sensory strategies, deep breathing exercises, movement breaks, and lots more. Some suggestions would be deep breathing for 1 minute. We want to make note that it's important to recognize and remind your kids that deep breathing doesn't mean it's not working. Just like riding a bike or learning how to read, those were skills that took a lot of time and a lot of practice and a lot of enhancing to get it right. Deep breathing is the same idea. So it's going to take some practice with the kids. It's going to take a lot of rehearsal, a lot of hand over hand. And like Doug mentioned throughout this presentation a few times, it's really good to do this with your kids. Do these exercises or strategies with your kids to model for them how they work, what to do, and be that co-regulator for them. Because right now, when they're experiencing these challenging feelings, their emotions are off the chart. Their ability to think rationally has diminished quite a bit. So they need that person, that guidance to help regulate. So you're kind of being that sounding board and that co-regulator for them, and they're going to mirror and mimic what you're doing. So showing them deep breathing, what that looks like, and we will show some examples and actually do it with them and sort of exaggerate your posture and your movements as well and encourage them to follow along and do it with you. And then afterwards, do some reflection of like, wow, that really made me feel better. I feel much calmer. How do you feel? So that they can start making connections of, oh, when I did that strategy, I felt better or I calmed down more quickly. So we will talk about a couple deep breathing ideas. Drinking a cold glass of water could be helpful as well. It gives a little bit of a shock to the body. You could do the 5 senses activity. So having them look around the room and focusing on 5 things they can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. So again, this is meant to be a sort of slow, calming activity, not just looking around the room quickly and calling out things. You really want to help ground them and just focus on their environment and really sort of scan the room and center themselves on that sense. So for me, 3 things they can hear. I can hear myself talking. I can hear some video games playing upstairs. And I can hear the wind blowing. Yeah, the computer in front of you. Or 2 things you can smell. I can smell leftover breakfast this morning. And the hand soap is very scented on my hands. So just really taking a moment and really sort of centering yourself, grounding yourself. You can encourage them to do a body scan, so lying back, closing their eyes, and squeezing muscles from the top of their body all the way down as hard as they can, and then relaxing, and then thinking about how their body feels. So starting at the top of their head, going through each muscle or each body part as they work their way down, and then thinking afterwards how they feel. Even giving themselves a hug or you giving them a hug or squeezing tight for 1 minute and hooking up. What we call hooking up is, I'm trying to show you guys on the screen, crossing your arms, bring them in tight to your chest, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And you can also interlock your legs and squeeze as well. And you really want to do that deep pressure, tight those muscles for about a minute, and then slowly release. And you'll notice that the body starts to relax naturally, and do that a few times.
And don't forget, you guys also do it as well. You guys also do it as well, and you're going to discover yourself some tools for your toolbox in the future.
Absolutely. Other suggestions could be squeezing a stress ball or Play-Doh or Theraputty. You could do a heartbeat exercise, so jumping up and down or jumping jacks, really do an exercise that gets your heartbeat moving. And then sitting down and having them put their hand over their heart, closing their eyes and paying attention to their heartbeat and also the rising and falling of their chest as they're taking those breaths. You could not play, but you could do a quick sensory activity involving like candy or chocolate, and just have them put a small piece of chocolate in their mouth and see how long it takes for it to melt without chewing and sucking. Again, that gives them something else to focus on, and it really gets them focusing on their mouth and the textures and the flavors in their mouth versus the feeling that caused them to feel so dysregulated. And another sort of movement break or muscle relaxation strategy could be a Superman pose. Have them stand with their feet just wider than their hips, fists clenched, arms reached out, and tense their muscles in their body for 1 minute as tight as they can, and then slowly releasing. Even just doing that for 3 seconds, I really felt my muscles, it felt really cool. So even if you do it along with me, just tense your muscles really, really tight, slowly release, and you can feel that just kind of melting. Imagine what that would feel like if you did it for 1 minute. Again, here's some visuals that we use in our classroom program. So you'll see that there's so the idea of deep breathing, it doesn't just have to be one size fits all. We recognize that kids are more responsive to some suggestions than others. So we like to offer different ways of presenting the strategy. So this one, just taking in 10 slow, deep breaths, counting to 5, and then breathing out and doing that 10 times. Or another visual to practice deep breathing is what's called the lazy 8 or figure 8 breathing. And so this idea is putting your finger either on a visual or even just imaginary in the air, and picture a figure 8, put it in the middle, and as you go around on the one side, taking a deep breath in. When you get back to the center, breathing it out. And doing that for 1 minute. And it really, that visual helps them realize they're not taking hard, fast breaths, that they actually want to do it slowly. Another example of deep breathing is the take 5 breathing, so using their hand and with their pointer finger, moving up one side, taking a deep breath in nice and slowly, and then down, all the way up again slowly, and then down. And again, that visual, that actual kinesthetic of doing it themselves, they'll see taking big, slow breaths, and then afterwards, like we talked about and Doug mentioned, doing it with them and then reflecting afterwards about how they felt. The next one we have is the 5 senses that I had mentioned. Even just having that visual can sometimes make it easier of what they should focus on. The eyeball for things that they can see, the hand for things that they can touch. Another idea for muscle relaxation is making silly faces in a bathroom mirror. Contorting their faces and exercising those muscles, is good for muscle relaxation. And likely if they're making silly faces or you're making silly faces together, there might be a few chuckles in there that helps distract from those negative emotions and gives you a bit of an opportunity afterwards to then reflect on what was going on for them. Another suggestion is just some massages and using lotion. So the sensory piece, if you have essential oils or if you have a scented lotion, put some lotion on your hands and rub into your hand muscles. Again, that distraction, that deep pressure, the sensory of the smells as well can be really therapeutic. A lot of our kids in our classroom really like using essential oils, and so they'll put them on their wrist and then practice rubbing into their hands as well. And another idea that we have here is just some muscle relaxation strategies for younger kids. So again, the idea of practicing deep breathing, so the visual of puffing up your cheeks like a big puffer fish, or stretching out their muscles like a turtle tongue, poking their tongue out like a turtle pokes their tongue out of their neck, so stretching their muscle and then sticking out their tongue. or a starfish stretch, so stretching out their body. So you can use different ways to help the child visualize what it is they should be doing. So hopefully we still have your attention and we're still moving along good. If you remember when we sort of at the start of this presentation, we talked about the idea of building in some inquiry and creative time. So the idea that learning doesn't just have to be math and language, it doesn't just have to be pencil to paper, building some opportunity to get creative with the learning, and whether that's science, art, drama, research. We're going to talk about what some resources are available to you that are included in this presentation and some other ideas as well. So when scheduling learning tasks for your child, it's important to alternate between different learning mediums. So work assigned by their teacher, online learning, experimental learning, creative learning, and even play or exploration time. By alternating these learning activities into their schedule, you're going to be catering to their individual learning style, because not all kids learn through visual, or not all of them learn auditory. Some learn hands-on. And by incorporating some different learning mediums, it's going to help them keep engaged and stimulated and pace the day in manageable blocks. Some suggestions for this creative time are things like arts and crafts, board games or card games, even board games. We use in our classroom chess, or we play a labyrinth maze game. It really develops some problem-solving skills, some prediction skills, thinking ahead as well. Puzzles, Lego, science experiments, scavenger hunts, creative writing exercises, or even watching educational videos or live streams of animals and zoos, doing online virtual tours, or researching a topic of interest, doing some online math games or keyboarding programs, coding programs, or even online reading games and books. I know those all sound like great ideas. Where do I find them?
Yeah, there's some amazing coding programs that I've discovered through talking to some of my families, wherein you can go online and create your own novel, create your own pictures for your novel. One family, one little girl has got a 64-page novel that she's created through this coding program, and she's thrilled at her accomplishments.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to capture here, is that kids are quite responsive when the learning can be done in a different way. So if you had asked that child to, pencil to paper, write out a journal, she might have not wanted to do that. But if you add a different element to it and give some control over the output of it, you get 64 pages instead of a paragraph. So these next couple slides, we've included some links of different resources you can access. We do want to note that these links you'll be able to find on the resource area of the Your Space Hamilton website, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it should be linked in the description or the comment section. So just quickly, the Royal Botanical Gardens has videos about the environment, plants, and animals using that link, or you can access virtual tours at museums. Museums are showcasing a lot of their popular exhibits, or the Museum of Science and Industry Chicago offers a simple machines game. The National Geographic Kids website offers great educational articles and videos if you want to sort of do some reading on animals and watching videos. Lots of tours are offering lots of zoos, are offering virtual tours and live streams of different animals and links to other resources. The Boys and Girls Club of Hamilton is offering virtual activities throughout the week. So like Doug had mentioned for the YMCA, I think, Boys and Girls Club of Hamilton as well is offering different activities every day that kids can engage in virtually. This link for YouTube videos is a playlist of lots of different educational videos that kids can access. These websites are for online books for kids. I can imagine not all of us have a library of books for kids to read in or read, or books that might be of interest to them anymore. So it's always good if you can access some online books for our kids. These links here also are for authors reading books to kids. So rather than the kids reading the books, they can listen to an author read a book. There's links for online math games, a link for keyboarding skills, so practice their keyboarding and typing skills. Like Doug had mentioned, some links for coding, where they can do some coding. This link here, 42 easy activities to keep children busy. This specifically takes into consideration parents who are having to work from home. So these activities are suggestions for kids that are ideas where it requires low supervision, no supervision, or low setup or no setup.
I happened upon that site, Kim, a while ago, and I've sent it to some families, and they said, "Oh, that's been a godsend," just because it's been a productive, constructive activity list for my kids to hook into, but it also gives me a break just to finish up some work while I'm in the same room supervising them and overlooking them. So,
Absolutely. And then the last one on this slide here is 15 educational at-home learning resources, some arts and crafts activities, and a link to a 30-day Lego challenge. So if you click on that, you'll get a visual calendar, and every day has a different challenge for the kids to do a Lego creation. One example is you're part of a NASA team and you need to create a new spaceship to go to Jupiter, and so it encourages the kids to create a new spaceship. And I think, Doug, you were mentioning that it also when Doug and I were talking about this before, he had mentioned that it also gives the opportunity to upload a picture of their creation, which goes to a website. And it's not a competition, it's not like a contest or anything like that, but the kids who have done this activity have really enjoyed seeing their creation on a live website. So that can also be an option as well.
And it's been very motivating. Obviously, if you see your creation on the internet, it motivates you to get in line to do it again the next week. So it's a lovely activity for a lot of kids.
For sure. So we really are hoping to highlight that learning can happen in lots of different ways. It doesn't just have to be sitting down and working on a worksheet. Even just the next time you make lunch, think about including your child, and then afterwards, build in lessons based on what it is that you prepared or what it is that you ate. Some examples of some questions could be, how is the bread made? Or how did it get from the farm to our table from the sandwiches that we ate? And getting them to look into what are the steps that go from a farm and getting the wheat to making the bread to getting to the store to then getting to my plate in front of me. Or you can ask questions about what government agencies are responsible to assure food safety, or what workers are involved in the supply chain. And you can incorporate even math and science into some cooking and meal prep. So you could ask questions like, what happens to vegetables when you heat them up? Or why do we cook meat? Does cooking help reduce germs? Or even asking questions like, how much more is 425 degrees than 350 degrees? Or what temperature does water boil? You don't have to have a whole setup activity for them to do. Even just asking some of those exploratory questions and engaging in some research activities and making those real world connections for them are all part of that 1 hour learning that the school board is encouraging every day.
Exactly. Making cookies together becomes a math class when you have to have like a quarter teaspoon of baking soda, 2 cups of milk or whatever. All that is a math related lesson in a fun way and a collaborative way with parents involved.
Absolutely. So, we recognize that these suggestions are fine and dandy if your child is receptive to engaging, but we can appreciate that some children might not be as motivated to engage. So then what happens then? We want to offer some suggestions of things that you can do to help your child if they are struggling to engage or aren't as responsive to doing some learning during their day. Remember that children do well if they can. If they aren't, then something's likely getting in the way for them. Your child's not behaving this way on purpose, they just might not be there yet. Recognize that school is an aspect of life that requires a lot of discipline and hard work, and that motivation can't be forced. If you try and force your child to be motivated, it can actually make things more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about some positive steps that you can take to help your child be more motivated to engage in learning. Most of these steps include that structure that we've been talking about so that they can have better discipline and follow through. And this structure is going to give them a chance for success. And what motivates
Mm-hmm.
us the most is when we feel successful. So some steps, first and foremost, is to try and stay positive. Keeping a relationship with your child that is open, respectful, and positive. And remind yourself that you and your child are on the same team, and this is going to allow you to be influential, which is your most important parenting tool. The second step is to validate.
Kim, it's hugely influential, that staying positive. Some parents have told me, to their surprise, even in this very stress-laden situation we're all in, just waking up and saying, I'm going to be on the lookout for some effort and some positive effort with my son or daughter today, changed the whole landscape of their day from that moment on. So the simple thought of just thinking about staying positive is so powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's good role modeling for the kids as well. The second step is just validating and practicing active listening. So validating their feelings and perspectives by conveying an understanding of their feelings and showing that you get it. This can look like, an example is, I can understand why you might feel angry because I'm asking you to do some schoolwork, because school's closed right now, and because you would rather be playing video games online with your friends. Once you validate that piece, it gives them a chance to get their guard down just because they feel like you are hearing and appreciating their perspective. And then from there, you can provide some emotional support. So this can be comfort or hope or reassurance. So offering a hug, giving them a smile, giving them some space, allowing them to be heard. So Doug mentioned a few times, just that conversation piece and giving them an audience to voice their concerns and their frustration can really be important as well. Or it could be reminding them that they're not alone and that you guys are on the same page and working as a team. And then after you provide that emotional support, you want to provide the practical support. And this can look like problem solving, redirecting, setting limits, distracting, or taking charge. You can find more related resources about validation on the Your Space Hamilton website.
Mm-hmm.
A third step is being aware of their anxiety level and recognizing that their lack of motivation might actually be their anxiety at play about the current situation and changes in the routine and expectations. And they might not be able to explain this to you because they might not be aware of the anxiety on a conscious level. They just know that they're on edge and they're moody, but they don't know that it's actually coming from a place of anxiety. So recognize that anxiety can be misinterpreted as sometimes a lousy attitude, lack of motivation, or irresponsibility. And sometimes these behaviors can come out as acting out, shutting down, avoidance, withdrawing, or defiance. So it's important to be aware that it might be anxiety that's at play and try and keep your emotions in check rather than viewing it as them being difficult.
And sometimes it's as simple, Kim. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, how can I help you right now? What do you need from me right now? And it just kind of interrupts the flow of the anxiety, but also addresses it, respects the fact that it exists, but also offers them the fact that you are offering a solution out of that state of feeling right at that moment.
Absolutely. Number 4, helping them see the bigger picture. For example, long-term goals. I know, Doug, some families that you're supporting right now, their focus has been kids wanting to learn and strengthen their reading skills. That's always been sort of a sore spot for them and a point of low confidence. And so parents have said, you know what, buddy, you've told me before you want to work on, getting better at reading. Let's do that. Let's work on sight words and high frequency words so that you can feel better about your learning. And again, including them in that and then tying it back to their long-term goals. Number 5 is giving choices when possible. So if you're doing a math work block, if you have some different ideas of math activities, give them the choice as to what they want to do. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what they're doing as long as they're doing some learning in some fashion. So I know some families will offer a worksheet or a scavenger hunt exercise or a measuring exercise. and give them the option to pick and choose what it is that they want to do. Number 6 is to use a first, next, then finished approach. We've talked about this before, about that sequential prompting and just letting them know what's happening first, what's happening next, and that there is an end in sight. One of life lessons, as we know, is that usually we get paid after the work we do. So sometimes kids appreciate having that incentive and knowing what sort of is waiting for them at the end. So even saying things like, when you finish your schoolwork, then you can have free time. Or once your schoolwork is completed, then you can watch that movie on Netflix. Number 7, as we've talked about, praising effort and hard work rather than outcomes. So one thing we do in our classroom is, rather than focusing on kids doing 17 questions of math, as long as they've been putting forth their best effort, and if that only means 5 questions of math, then that's all that matters, and we recognize and praise that hard work and effort. So that's something that's really important to do. Remember that giving praise is one of the most important and influential things that you can do as a parent. So again, I can tell you've been practicing your reading, or the practice is really paying off on your times table. You're reinforcing for them that they have some control in their learning and that they can make gains if they apply effort, rather than praising the outcome. Oh, wow, you did all those questions, good job. You can still do that, but it's just a different approach to take when you're trying to engage your child in learning.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8, as we've talked about, is getting involved. Sit with them when they're working. No child likes to feel like they're having to do schoolwork when they perceive that other people are having fun and not having to do schoolwork. So if you can, sit with them or be near them.
Kim, remember I was saying earlier another idea would be to diversify the workspace. A mom told me the other day that in her efforts to diversify and kind of change up the workspace for her son, she invited him to sit beside her at their dining room table while she was doing work, therefore modeling good work practices, and he was right beside her. So she could supervise, help him if needed, but he was also seeing his mom being productive, and she was seeing him being productive, but they're also together. So it was a lovely win-win.
Right. It's kind of like that teamwork piece, right? We both have these 2 things we need to do. How can we help each other get them both done, and then so that we can have fun afterwards?
Yes.
Good point. So yeah, get involved and sit with them or be near them. They'll have an easier time concentrating with you nearby. Also, you can get involved by making daily activities educational. So as we talked about, take advantage of things that are happening day to day or conversations that come up to really build in some of that learning. So like Doug had said, you can use baking for working on math skills, or sorting skills when you're putting away groceries, or practicing problem solving by making a blanket fort. What's going to, make this most secure? How can we fasten this better? Really practice those problem-solving skills. Or using mealtime and prep to practice manners, or using chores to reinforce respect and helping others. Another way to get involved is reading. Really important to try and read 20 minutes every day, and this could be you reading to them or having them read to you as well. That reading piece is really going to help them with their general knowledge, improve their reading skills, and enhance their vocabulary. So there's lots of benefits of taking that time every day to do some of that reading together. And lastly, another idea to get involved is perhaps having them teach you about a topic of interest. So I know all of us want to learn more about Minecraft or Fortnite or Michael Jordan or Beyblade. So maybe ask them about something that interests them and see if they'll teach you about it, and give them the opportunity to do some research about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, number 9, using your virtual supports, whether that be your child's classroom teacher, family, and friends. I know some teachers are available to their students by email, or some have been doing phone check-ins, and I think a few have actually been able to do some video conferencing as well. So if you have found that you don't understand the math, I'll raise my hand to that your child has been assigned, then feel free to reach out to the teacher and say, hey, can you explain this, or can we arrange a time for you to help my child through this, or you know what, this isn't realistic for us to do without the support, can you send us something else instead?
One of my kids said to me the other day, I didn't know that my aunt was a teacher. So they're discovering the professions of their various family members, and sometimes it comes in very handy if they're a teacher or whatever. So
Absolutely. And one of the last things we want to talk about in the midst of all this stressful and chaotic and uncertain time is the importance of self-care. So in order for us to really do some of these strategies and suggestions we've talked about so far, it's going to be equally important to practice some self-care, your child and you, so that you can have the energy and the ability to implement some of these suggestions. Self-care is a really important part of wellness. It's about nurturing ourselves so that when difficult situations arise, like the one we're currently in, we have the energy and strategies to get through it. And it's also important to take time to discover what helps us to feel good and recharge. We want you to take a few seconds now to think of some things your family currently does for self-care. I know for me, some of my self-care strategies are going on right now short walks with my dogs, playing some video games, or watching that weekly TV show that I like to watch, or even listening to music and connecting with friends virtually. Doug, what about you? What are some of your self-care strategies?
I love going for walks, and even being as simple as you walk in one direction the one day and just walk in the other direction the next day, and you'd be amazed at the different things that you notice along the same street, along the same pathway. I also like to run, so I've got an ability to get up and run early in the morning when nobody else is around, and I continue my social distancing practices. But still, those are the ways for self-care for myself.
Awesome. So some general self-care tips, nutrition. We know nutrition is important and we want to focus on eating foods that will provide us with the nutrients we need. And you also want to try and watch your water intake, increase the water intake and decrease the caffeine intake. That'll keep you hydrated, it will keep your energy up, and you won't feel as groggy and low energy. Sleep is important, so getting a healthy number of hours of sleep each night helps us to feel better and deal with the stresses of life. Like we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, it's important to still go to bed at a same consistent time and still try and get up at the same consistent time as well. Mm-hmm. The need for exercise, so being physically active every day has many positive effects on our health. This doesn't need to take much time. Even 30 minutes is really important. And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes in one block. I know that some families are doing like a morning walk, an afternoon walk, and an evening walk, again, just to break up the day and switch the pace. So you can spread that out throughout the day as well.
You know what I've discovered too, Kim? Just the family watching their favorite TV show together, and every commercial that comes up, everybody just gets up and walks in one place.
Right.
Amazing, easy, self-care strategy, working together, seeing each other, role modeling, but also getting that exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of opportunities for creativity. Other self-care tips is enjoying, connecting, and pausing. So taking time each day to do things that help us feel good, and spending time with friends and family virtually can help increase levels of happiness. And recognizing and reflecting. So being mindful of our thoughts and feelings, both positive and negative. And these strategies are adapted from the Self-Care 101 resource that you can find on the School Mental Health website. And that resource, I believe, you can also find on the Your Space Hamilton website as well as other self-care resources. Some additional self-care tips for you as a parent. Modify daily activities to meet the current reality of the situation. It's important to allow for wiggle room throughout the day because, let's face it, life happens and not everything goes to plan. So it's definitely important to give yourself that permission to just kind of roll with the punches, go with the flow, and be flexible to say, you know what, not today. We're not going to do that today. I'm just going to put that off my radar and put it on the back burner.
And I feel okay about that.
Yes.
And I feel okay about that.
Absolutely. Focus on what you can accomplish. Shift expectations and priorities to focus more on what gives you meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. And give yourself small breaks from the stress of the situation. And lastly, try to catch any self-defeating statements and replace them with more helpful thoughts. Try to remember that this is temporary. I know it's hard to feel like it's not, especially when we don't really have a clear sense of when the end is in sight, but it will end. We will kind of get back to a normal. It might look a little bit different or be a new normal for a little bit, but it is only temporary. And we will have an end in sight.
What I've heard from parents too, Kim, is that this unique opportunity has been an opportunity for them to kind of reflect on themselves as individuals within a family and learn more about each other. So it's been a positive experience in an interesting sort of way, being in a self-isolating situation, but also using the time to just learn more about each other and ultimately be more helpful and available for each other. So it's been an emotionally positive growth experience as well for some families.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we ask you, what's your self-care plan moving forward? What's your family self-care plan moving forward? Try and pay attention to that and be mindful of carving out some time in your day to really take care of yourself so that you can feel recharged and energized to deal with the stressful and tricky times throughout the day and weeks. So here's that School Mental Health Ontario resource I was talking about. Again, available on the Your Space Hamilton website, as well as other self-care resources. Final thoughts. Remember, you are doing your best. There's a good chance you're juggling a lot right now on top of dealing with your own thoughts and feelings, so it's important to treat yourself with compassion and gentleness. These are all just suggestions. Remember, when we started this presentation, we hoped that you would hear them and pick and choose and adapt and personalize suggestions and strategies that are doable for you and your family. There's going to be some days where you're going to have so much going on the go and you're going to feel like you can't do it all, and that's okay. Again, give yourself that permission, that forgiveness, that leniency, and that compassion. Most importantly, try to have fun as a family unit and really enjoy this time together. It's a really unique situation and a time where we're finding the time to spend with each other, as Doug mentioned. Really take advantage of that as much as you can. If you don't do learning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's just about spending time with your family, that's okay. Remember that we're all in this together, and we hope that you found some helpful strategies and ideas from this presentation.
Good luck, everybody, and thank you very much for your help.
Thank you so much. Take care.